excited to welcome Kayla Burke and Diana. The It Girls for real. Okay, so we're up here to talk about personal branding. Super important. I'm Yrbenka. I'm a creator manager, community manager here at LinkedIn. I work with sales and biz dev voices, so some of you, but I also support our DEI creators on the platform. I'm going to let Kayla and Diana introduce themselves. They have so many accolades, and so I could go on and on about them. I literally met them in person for the first time today. But on our Zoom call last week, I was like, tell me about yourselves. And they were like, and this, and that, and this, and that. And I was like, and this, and that, and this, and that. So, Kayla, do you want to go first?
Sure. So, hey everyone, I'm Kayla. Ooh, is this on? Yeah? Okay. Hey everyone. No. Hey. Yeah. Hey everyone, I'm Kayla Burke. So I'm an enterprise sales specialist, and I work on the frontline worker product at Microsoft in healthcare and life sciences. I've been in tech sales for about 7 years now. Started my career at IBM, the Summit program, went to OneTrust, which is one of the fastest growing startups in history, and I have been at Microsoft 4 years. So really happy to be here. Outside of that, I'm a podcast host. I have about 87,000 followers across all my platforms now that I've been working on. And yeah, I'm an influencer online. So that's a little bit about me. Very excited to tell you guys like how I built that brand and how all these things came together, but that's me.
Awesome. I'm Yrbenka Arthus, and I'm the founder of the Customer Success Project. And it's an organization dedicated to helping customer success managers, professionals, leaders thrive in their careers. Before I founded this company, I've been working in the tech space for almost a decade. I wanted to go to law school, and when I worked at a law firm, I said, no, thank you, skip. So I went to bartend until I figured out my life. And that led me towards HTML, CSS in some weird way. And I was like, I'm gonna do software engineering. Also not the case. We got into the customer experience side of things and then transitioned to customer success. So over the last couple of years, I've really been building as much as I can in the customer success space. And about 2021, I opened a TikTok account, and that was crazy. So now I'm a TikToker, also have a YouTube channel about the Customer Success Project, and also post a lot on LinkedIn about customer success. So similar to you, I have right around the same ballpark, 80,000-ish followers across all of my platforms. And I'm excited to be here with y'all and talk to you about that.
Shameless plug, I have 6,000 LinkedIn followers.
That's up.
It's something. So you both shared a little bit about your career journeys, but I want to know kind of like, what was the moment, what was the catalyst when you wanted to start the personal branding part of that journey? You're coming from Microsoft, you've been there 4 years in the sales space, you've been working across customer success. At what point were you like, it's time for me to take this step and bet on myself and start my own personal branding journey outside of my 9 to 5? Sure, yeah.
So I would say for me, I've always had a lot of followers. I feel like I was kind of like the Instagram girl, to be honest, at first. And then the catalyst decision was like, well, what do I actually want to do with this platform and following, right? Like I have a ton of women following me. How do I want to represent myself, and what can I provide to this community? So I think for me, the turning point was primarily around understanding like you do have influence, and you need to like let people know that Black women can be in tech sales, you can be represented in this space, and it's amazing. It's not something I should just be hiding and kind of like, I don't want nobody knowing what I do for work, you know what I mean? So I was very private, because the internet can be, kind of crazy, so I didn't want people really knowing my personal business at first, but I think for me, one day I did like a career chat, and I think like the first time like a few hundred people signed up and like 90 people showed up live the first time, and I was like, oh y'all want this information, okay? What am I gonna do with this? So I think for me, that was like the pivotal moment, was just putting myself out there in a new light for people to see me in that way, and it was received so well, and the engagement was so crazy that I was just like, okay, I'm gonna ride this wave, So I think that was it for me.
I can see why you had the Instagram follower. I just want to say you're stunning. Next to her, okay, focus. For me, it was really just coming to the realization that all I had to my name was a piece of paper, which was my resume. So when I was trying to transition to customer success, I was having a hard time because it was like, well, you don't have this traditional experience. But I'm like, I know, but trust me, I am a very hard worker. The only network that I was making though was like internally, right? The people that I was working with, they knew I was a hard worker, but I can be like, hey, could you like help me get a job somewhere else? Because that's awkward. So that's what led me to starting to build my own brand, because I was like, I need to work out loud, which is a lot of what I base myself and my branding around, just like working out loud so that I never have to just be this piece of paper. That was like the catalyst for me.
And while you're building this online presence and you still have like, you're working your 9 to 5, you have this sales role, but you're like, I want to take this step into starting making content online. How are you balancing? Well, I guess the first question is like, how do you define professionalism, right? LinkedIn had this huge campaign last year, 2021, around redefining professionalism and what professionalism looks like and how we're all redefining that and showing up as ourselves at work. But when you're taking that online, like you said, there can be, there's judgment, people can be nasty, you don't want to show too much of this or too much of that. So how are you balancing professionalism and showing up and being like, I'm a very serious person and I do my job and this is all very serious, but also like, I'm Kayla, I'm Diana, and for me, I'm Yrbenka, the person behind the title, essentially, behind the resume. So how are you finding a balance between professional and personal branding?
I would say obviously you just have to use discretion. Like naturally, I can't post like everything I'm doing in my life, but I do think what makes my audience connect with me is me showing up as my authentic self and people realizing like I am a corporate baddie, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm gonna show up, I'm gonna step into the room with a certain level of confidence and dress how I'm gonna dress and be my authentic self and still crush it at work. So that's the relatable piece that people actually fall in love with more than me trying to portray like, I'm just super corporate or I'm just super this, like I am me, right? So I'm adaptable. When I go to work, I am who I am. When I'm on vacation, I am who I am, you know what I'm saying? Like I am gonna show up and articulate myself and just present myself as my true self. I think the balance to it is always performing, right? I think it becomes a problem, right? If I'm not crushing it at work, but I'm online all day like posting selfies and stuff. So it's like the credibility that I have comes from, oh, she's really doing it. And then on top of that, she's still being herself. So I think that is the true balance, right? Balancing out your performance, because if you're in sales, you're in a performance-driven role. So if you're really crushing it, like it's cool for me to get online and say, oh yeah, I just closed a $3 million deal. But it's like, it's not cool for me to get online and be like, hey, I missed my number this quarter. I can't coach you, I can't encourage you and motivate you if I'm not really doing what I say I do. So I think for me, that's been what has really brought my brand together, is really staying dedicated and crushing it and being able to still show up as my authentic self, truly. Like,
I think for me, it's really questioning what does professionalism even mean, because I've been very lucky in that I get a lot of messages from folks that are like, hey, you look and you sound like me and you're crushing it. That's amazing. But before that, there was no one that looked and sounded like me talking about customer success out loud. So in a way, I think that by us being vulnerable, showing up as ourselves, we give other people the permission to actually show up as their selves. And by doing that, we change this whole dynamic around professionalism. Because just a couple of years ago, it wasn't professional to have hair like this or like this, right? And now we even have, regulations like the Crown Act that are pushing forward things like what professionalism actually means in the workplace. So I think leaning into vulnerability and bringing ourselves more like the deep, true things that we encounter day in and day out into our content is a way for us to do that. So when I started posting about customer success and all that, one thing that I wanted to do, and I got really mathematical about it, but I was like, 80% is gonna be about professional stuff. How am I doing customer success? What's the thing that I'm learning? And then 20% is gonna be about things that make me who I am, because anybody can talk about the shit that I'm learning and what I did as a customer success manager in the last quarterly business review. but no one's gonna talk about what it's like to be a woman of color, what it's like to have twins and be a stay-at-home mom, or whatever the hell I wanna talk about. But those are the things that make my story mine, and no one else can take that away from me. So it is a delicate balance, because you're right, I'm not gonna post every single thing about myself. For example, for the last year, I haven't shared anything around what's happening in my personal life, around going through a divorce and all that, because I'm like, nah, that's too deep for LinkedIn. Why the fuck would I say that? But, you know, on other platforms like TikTok, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna let y'all into what's happening, because this does affect me, and it's still professional.
Yeah.
And I think LinkedIn, can I add?
Sure.
I think LinkedIn is a very different space than Instagram, TikTok, and I guess Threads and Twitter, like all the things that you can go into. But I think I show up different on LinkedIn than I show up on my Instagram, because LinkedIn is like more professional. There's people at my company who are engaging with me, and I want to present myself in a way more professional aspect on LinkedIn, but I feel like Instagram is my personal profile. Like, this is a different platform for that. So I would just say, yeah, have your discretion as well on, every platform has different audiences, and as anybody who's creating content, your main goal is to produce content that resonates with the audience and lands with that audience. So just make sure that you know how to switch the content up for the different platforms as well, is what I would say.
Diana, you mentioned launching your TikTok in 2021, and it's so sick. The first thing I thought of was the Meg Thee Stallion Savage Challenge in 2021. If you're like, this is like peak pandemic core. But 2021 is when we saw a lot of people coming to TikTok especially, and we see so many creators now across so many different niches. Like, there is a corner of the internet, there is a corner of TikTok for any random, like, I will type in 28-year-old Haitian girl Flatbush, and it'll be like, and I'm like, this is me. So for you, how were you able to like carve out your niche and like really lean into your specialization in a space that can be a bit crowded? And I think same for you, Kayla. Instagram, you have a podcast. How are you like differentiating yourself in the market that can be a little bit crowded?
So for TikTok 2021, by the way, I have a couple of saved drafts of me trying to do these dances. I don't publish them. I just want to see if I can do them. Like the water challenge now, I'm like, no, your body doesn't shake like that. But anyway, they're in the drafts. In 2021, when I started talking about customer success on TikTok, people were like, what the hell are you talking about? It's like that trend right now. I watch TikTok too much. I could literally just talk in trends and sound. So at that time, it was like tumbleweed. Like, I was just talking to nobody about this thing. And I'm like, all right, first of all, your first video is about how to do a quarterly business review. Can we take a step back and talk about what the hell are you talking about? Like, when would you have to do this? So then I started to go into like introductory sort of content. But as time progressed, I had to change it up and throw a little bit of vulnerability and like do different type of content. And I know that there are now other customer success focused creators that have surpassed my TikTok followers. And I'm like, that's fine. For me, I'm thinking about it more from a business perspective, which I know that we'll talk about at a later time. But I'm staying true to like what I've started to create, and I can say I'm the first creator about customer success on TikTok, which is
No, that's right.
a nice little pat on the back.
I would say the same. I would say, so in sales, you have something called your unique value proposition, right? So I think for me, I looked at the market and I said, what is your unique value in this market? And it was the fact that there weren't many women who looked like me or acted like me online doing what I'm doing. And I was just like, all right, like, well, I'm gonna be the girl to do it. You know what I mean? So I think a lot like a seller in my real life and through my socials and all of that. I take all these practical applications of everything that I'm doing with customers and my processes at work every single day, and I really apply them to my life. Because I'm like, the same way that you would, you know, position a product to a customer, you are positioning the value of that solution for someone to buy into you. So it's the same exact thing on my social media. Like, how am I gonna get people to buy into my vision, buy into whatever I'm doing? It's by creating a unique value in the market. And I feel like for me, that's when everything like kind of clicked and I figured out my niche. And my niche kind of went from career then into tech sales. So I started off at like a higher level, feeling out the market and just like, hey, who's resonating and what's landing with people? And from there, you learn from what people like, right? So if I create a reel and it don't go viral, hey, they may not receive that well, but what's working, and I'm gonna keep tapping into that. So I like, sometimes I just go with the flow and I let my following like show me where I need to really lean into, more so, I think, for me.
I'll add to that, Kayla. I agree. It's almost like you put out an idea and then your followers, they validate that idea or they reject it and you're like, all right, I won't do that again.
Literally.
So it is a learning moment, but it's also like if you trust the thing that maybe your audience isn't resonating with right now, it doesn't mean that down the road they won't. Maybe you just have to like inject it little by little. And I've found the same in when I was trying to talk about like customer marketing, and the customer success folks were like, no, we're customer success, don't talk about this. And I kept pushing it until I had a couple of little breakthrough moments, and I had like a client that came through that. So I was like, all right, it works, but not for everyone.
And I know this is a predominantly sales audience as new sellers. I know a lot of us think of time and like quarters and quotas. And for a lot of people who haven't taken that first step to even start talking about their professional lives online, I guess 2 questions. How do you get started, right? Everyone's always like, just post something. And it's like, it's not that easy. Sometimes there's creator block. A lot of us have, I know this is like this is a controversial term now, imposter syndrome. I'm trying to figure out what to replace that phrase with, but you guys all kind of know what I'm talking about. To be like, can I do this? You know, do I have the qualifications and the credibility? So that's the first question, is how do I get started? And the second is, how do you guys keep yourselves on track? What sort of success measurements, and like how are you're posting a lot of content, and like sometimes I'm just like, I don't know if I have anything to say. How are you, the output, like how are you holding yourself accountable to keep showing up?
I think for me it's like, you're accountable if you're making money. Like if this is a business, that's how you're accountable, right? So when I don't post, I don't make money. So it's really easy for me to want to get up and be motivated to post. It's just that simple, right? Like if I get a contract from a brand and I'm signing in, I got, you know, a little drop in the account. I like that, you know what I'm saying? So I'm in sales, that's what I'm trying to say. Like if you are a seller, you're positioning yourself online for a reason. You're not just posting for fun. Like you're posting because you have established a brand online and you have a service, you have knowledge, you have a product. So for me, I measure my success with how much brand deals I'm getting. Is it growing month by month? Revenue goals of my business online, you know? And I just think, I think that's just how I measure my success personally, is how well am I getting engaged? Are the brands getting bigger, right? Am I growing and following and engagement? Are people naturally trying to be engaged more and more with my brand? That's the success. But if I'm posting all day, you know, you can post to give out free information, people do that. But for me personally, when I have to balance so much work and time, there's no benefit for me to just be out here like lollygagging and just on Instagram when I know there's serious revenue potential. And I would tell anybody sitting in the audience, like, treat it like a business. Don't treat it like social media, because at the end of the day, there is tons and tons of money like involved. Everybody you see posting, they're getting paid for this, right? So whether YouTube's depositing a check on top of my job, whether a brand is depositing a check, whether personal consultations, whether my boot camps, all these things come with great revenue, sometimes more than work, you know what I mean? So just take it serious, you know, is what I would say, for sure.
To address your first question about like, you know, when you're new and you're like, what am I gonna post about? That was my situation, because I started posting right around the time where I was trying to transition to customer success from being a team lead for a customer experience team. And so when I first started my journey, I was like, I don't know if I should be posting about this, because I just don't have the credentials. Like, who am I to post about customer success? I haven't even done it. So I went to 2 of my friends, both very successful podcasters, One is Louis, he is the host of Everyone Hates Marketers, and the other one is Andrew Michael, who is the host of Churn.fm. And both of these guys were like, look, we are not the experts in our field. We just interview the experts in our field, and by doing that, we almost like become the experts. But we don't know the shit that they know. We're just borrowing their expertise. And that hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, I get it now. So I started recapping podcast episodes about customer success. Anytime I went to an interview and they asked me a question, I was like, I have no idea what this is. I'm like, go listen to a podcast, go recap it. And it was more for myself, but that gave me the content so that I can go post. And then a couple of months down the road, I thought to myself, if I were starting from scratch all over again, what would I post about? And it was, again, thinking about how other people did it and either having an opinion about that, or what's my perspective, or how is there some sort of correlation between my field right now and sales, whatever it is I'm trying to get into. So there is nobody handing out credentials, by the way. Like, oh, you can post now. You are qualified to talk about this. Anybody can talk about anything. It's both dangerous and it's also great for us. So we're gonna take the great for us route when it comes to starting your journey. And just know at the very beginning, it's gonna suck. People are not gonna care because they're like, who are you? But at the beginning, do it for you, not for them. Do it for yourself and keep getting louder and louder as time progresses. You're gonna get somewhere. I was using this app called, you talked about measuring, so I'll get into the measurement side of things. So at the beginning, I started on a spreadsheet first, and I was like, you post about this, what were the tags you used, and how many comments did you get, and that's how I was measuring stuff every time I posted. And then I was like, this is not sustainable, and also crazy, but I needed it at the time to get an idea of like, well, what's the data behind this? What should I continue posting? Then I moved on to something called Shield app. And at the very beginning of posting content, it was all about numbers and followers, and then I was like, there needs to be something else. Like, what else do we got? Because numbers and followers is just not enough. Then I started thinking about connections. Who was I actually connecting to? And to your point about like revenue, then is this leading me to a job? Then I started measuring it that way. And now I'm where you are, which is like, I'm measuring it through revenue, brand deals, partnerships, collaborations, clients, but also friends. Like, I have this small group of friends called CS Melanin, and we're all customer success managers. We meet every other week. We've been talking for the last 2 years, and I've never seen these women in person. Like, I might be getting catfish. And we plan to meet eventually, but we have been friends. Every 2 weeks, we talk on the phone, and we have our WhatsApp, and one of them lives in London, the other one lives in Seattle, and we just chat all the time. That, to me, is a measure of success, because I've been able to cultivate friendships, a network that can help me in the future, but also, like, I have friends now, and that's hard to do as you get older. So that's the way I'm measuring success now.
Yeah, that brings me to my next point, and I'll share a bit about, building your personal brand. I know we talked about TikTok, we've talked about Instagram. I know you both share a bit of content on LinkedIn as well. It is my job and my duty to this room as a LinkedIn creative manager to also talk about how you can be branding yourselves on LinkedIn by sharing more about your professional lives on the platform. So it's not only like when you're looking for a job or when you're announcing that you got a new job that you go to LinkedIn. I'm sure there are restrictions around what you can share when it comes to deals and such, right? But is there something else that you can be sharing about your professional life on LinkedIn for the people who are connected with you, like you said, building connections, or following you, for them to take away? And with LinkedIn, it's less about like getting external brand deals and more about community building and the connections that you can make. I'll bring up an example for myself. I know I'm not a panelist, but I do have an anecdote about, I started at LinkedIn 2 years ago. This was my first tech role. I'm a publicist by background. So I'm, kind of making this transition into tech, joining this brand new team and not really knowing anyone here. Then also coming back to the office after the pandemic, I came to this office and I was like a lost puppy or like a freshman on the first day of college. But then we started camping out on the 22nd floor, and I was actually meeting more people from the sales team. They were in here. They are deep in this office. Love the sales folks. And I started noticing this trend that like people in this office were like really fly. I was like, okay. So I started this series on LinkedIn randomly, and I think Shikal was saying like, I got this job by accident. And so I accidentally started this series on LinkedIn called Kicks of LinkedIn, and it started to get this like, this global community was built around it. And this idea of building community in your workplace, and then also like showing up as your authentic self. So it's less of me being like, today I onboarded 7 creators into my roster, and more about me being like, here are the cool people who work at LinkedIn, and here's what they're wearing, and here's, you know, a lesson in showing up authentically. And Jesse, who's moderating the next panel, told me to tell this, like, it caught wind with the CEO and leadership, and then our comms team got me a press op for it. And now I'm like the Kicks of LinkedIn girl, which has nothing to do with my actual job, but it's allowed me to talk to like the head of DEI at Golden State Warriors who's DMing me about sneakers, people from Nike, corporate, or like, and so now I'm building this community and these connections from a post that happened by accident, but it was just this content idea. And so this idea of connection and community and the value of that sometimes we can't put this like dollar amount to. What is the relationship between community and your personal brand? Like, how do you build the two together? How do they relate? Are you seeing that like from your followers, you have ones who are really rallying around you and cheering you on? I guess like, how have you built community, and then how has your community poured back into you as content creators and folks with personal brands?
I think my community comes from YouTube, to be honest, because people get to see who I really am, and they like really fall in love with you, I guess, like who you are. Like every other platform is just tidbits. Like you really don't know anybody like just from an Instagram post or a picture. You don't even know what their voice sounds like. You don't really know much about them. So I feel like YouTube has been the biggest. They stand, like they in the comments like, yo, you really motivated me, like I really got a job, like, and then from there, they naturally find me on LinkedIn. So my LinkedIn community is super deep now. Like every day I get messages.
It's the best platform.
Yeah, like every day I get messages now. Like even people have messaged me today like, oh my God, like I'm really coming to this event. Like it's different. Like now I talk to people all the time. And I feel like the community aspect is really cool because people will help your community grow with natural, I guess it's like, it's not testimonies, but they start to tell everybody about you and your community just starts to explode. So yeah, I stand with my girls because the tech daddies, we are a community. I love it. I feel like my community is mostly people trying to break into sales, and it's just heartwarming to see like so many people message me like, hey, like I really can do this. You really got me motivated. I really got a job because of you. I really negotiated a higher salary because of I got an interview progression, you know? And then I just started doing sales coaching a few months ago. So now I have groups of people who I coach, and that is like my babies, my heart, because I'm seeing the progression week by week, and people kept asking me like, can you mentor me? I started getting hundreds of messages, and I was like, what? Y'all want me to do that? You know, so it's really heartwarming, but I would just say like the community aspect is probably my favorite because it's like your friends, your family, kind of like online. So I think that's how it happened for me. And I think YouTube was the Instagram to YouTube, because you know they funnel you know. But I think the mark of me being consistent on YouTube and weekly just posting my life, bringing people with me, like, oh, I'm outside, I'm having fun, I'm at work, like, you know. I feel like people really resonated with my personality and got to know me, and that built a community for me.
Mine started mainly on LinkedIn, but done a little bit of like the TikTok funneling to LinkedIn. But my community, I think building the brand is building a community. It's because sometimes when we hear the word like build your brand, it's like, it gives you the ick a little bit. So an easier way to put it is if it feels like it's reciprocal, and that is a community, right? It's not just about you, it's about everybody else with you. So I would say I've met people in person, I've gone to events, I've made the friends that I have not met yet. We know each other's heights though, we did cover that. And that I think is such a big part of the community, right? Building all these friends, but they are the ones that are also mentioning your name in the right room. So next November, I'm gonna be speaking at the Customer Success Conference, which to me, it's not something that I reached out to. Like I want to speak more, but I wasn't actively doing that. I wasn't going after that. And one of the customer success queens was like, hey, by the way, this conference is coming up. I'm recommending you as a speaker because we need more people like you, plus you know what you're talking about. And so look out for that email. Boom, confirmed, now I'm speaking there. Like that's the power of community. They aren't afraid to mention your name in the right rooms. Where I'd be scared to raise my hand and be like I need some of your seller juice. Like I might be doing the sales coaching, whatever you're offering, because I need some of that for myself. So they are also your advocates, and that's the power of community. And wherever I can mention them or connect them to the right job or whatever they need, that's what I'm here for as well.
Yeah. I love those anecdotes that you guys have shared. I wish we could get to more of the, I want to talk a bit more, but maybe we can do this in the 10 minutes that we have for the mingling. If you could share with folks here, I'm sure that you guys can come up to Diana and Kayla to ask them questions about how they've, the career opportunities and then the brand opportunities and how to negotiate those contracts and things. Those are the questions I always have. I'm always like how many monies? But thank you so much. I think we have time for one or two questions. I know that we're running out of time, and I want to make sure we have all the time for the next panel. I saw your hand first, and I'm going to look that way next. But if you want to ask a question, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Sierra. What did it look like, or when did you decide to go from free to only paid? So, maybe not when somebody reached out for your first one, you may have been excited, but when did you decide, I'm not going to do anything else for free?
Oh, you mean the services that you offer online?
For your brand deals and stuff like that.
Oh, once money started coming in. Because there's a point where you're not really getting offers for money. You'll know, you're going to get that first email hey, we want to pay you X, or, it just happens, kind of. I wouldn't say there's a point where I was just to them, hey, I want to be paid for this. It was more oh, I got my first brand deal. I got my email. And yeah, so I would say that. I would say outside of brands, the services I offered online, there was a point where I was just answering DMs and giving out tons of free information. And at a point I realized, one, people will waste their time, right? My time is super valuable. So if you're gonna DM me, how can I break into tech? And you didn't go on Google to do that, hey, I don't really have the answer for you. I don't have time for that. I think knowing my worth really just set the tone for everything else when it came to me providing services and setting a price, because I'm knowledgeable, and the more people started to ask me questions, I realized I am a wealth of knowledge, and people, you gotta pay to play. At the end of the day, if I wanna do something, I go invest my time and my money to get the answers and the resources I need. So anybody who's serious about my time, my advice that I'm brokering, and the knowledge it took me years to acquire, they're gonna pay for my service, and I'm not gonna charge ridiculous amounts of price, ridiculous price, you get what I'm saying? But yeah, I think that's when it really changed for me. Sent me a request to get paid online, yeah.
For me, it's two things. The first one is I already have a ton of free content, and I'll continue to create free content. So if you want the elite, elevated, collaborating with me content or one-to-one service, then it's gonna be paid. And then the second thing for me was also you, once someone reached out to me and was like, hey, do you wanna collaborate and we'll pay you this amount? I was like, you sure you're talking to me? Yes, but also how can I recreate what just happened between me and this company? So that also kind of, and a lot of kind of faking it till you make it with some of these brand deals, I don't know, I'm just gonna put a number out there and I'll update that email, the number that I'm putting in my email several times before. I'm like, you have it, you are worth it, you can charge this much, and then send it. But I'm on my personal, recognizing my own worth journey, so sometimes I will slip up and give shit away for free.
With the brands too, I'll just add this. It's a very gray area space right now with negotiating rates for brands, because now what I do is I ask, what's your budget? just straight up. Like, I'm not giving you a number until I know what you're willing to pay me, because I could tell you I only wanna get paid, let's say $2,000 for this reel, but what if they had a budget for 5? They're gonna bite off the fact that I went, they can keep that money. So now, and it weeds out people who don't have money to provide for me. Like, if you don't have a budget, I'm not emailing you back, period. So that's a really great question. If you ever get an email, do not lead in with, these are my rates. Lead in with, well, what is the budget for the ad campaign that you're running? Now, sometimes they're gonna message you like, hey, we wanna pay you X amount. You have to then decide, is that a good amount for you to accept or not? But be particular with your brand deals too, because you don't want every free product on your page. You don't want to flood your stuff and it looks like an ad all day. So that would be my advice around that as well.
What's your budget is a 6-figure question. Do we have any more questions? We'll be around.
I have a question.
Okay, sorry, I didn't see you back there.
Hi, my name is Christina Nixon. I love that you guys have a blend of like a CEO as well as corporate experience. So I'm curious on like what tech platforms do you guys use to be a successful CEO in your role as well. So in sales, you use like CRM, do you use accounting, all this good stuff. As far as like Grammarly or any, these are the platforms that I would highly suggest as you're building your brand. Like give us the tea.
I would, Grammarly for sure. English is my second language, so I don't trust myself. So I will use Grammarly all the time. The second thing is HubSpot. They have a free version. It's easy to use. It tracks my emails. It does everything that I need for it. Calendly for scheduling, and then I have my website on Wix because people can book calls on that. Also, I am like Shaquille, she said she was a person, like one person doing all the jobs. I am right now just one person for 2 reasons. One, I'm not ready to let go as a true CEO. I'm not ready to let go. I gotta talk to you. And 2, I'm just not there yet. So I'm doing all the stuff by myself. And Wix is just easy for me to edit my site and make my changes, make me feel like I'm a designer of sorts.
I would say in my business, ChatGPT is my bestie, okay? Like, I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't make a move without getting on ChatGPT. Like, hey, what's up, ChatGPT? Can you let me know what I need to do? Because it will set a framework for you, and just the time to market whatever you need to do is reduced, right? So I think ChatGPT is one of the game changers for me at this point. Obviously, that wasn't always around. I use Calendly. I use payment integrations into whatever I need to get paid from. So if y'all doing business, make sure your books is right. I use QuickBooks on the back end, so everything is being expensed correctly for tax time and all the things that I'm generating outside of work. And I'm a big AI and automation type of girl. So like, if it can be automated, or if I can find a tool, like I don't think anymore, like it's bad, but I'm like, why should I?
You're redirecting the
so
process.
long, like I really did that for so long. And I'm at the point now where I have I have video people, like, you know what I'm saying? Like I have a podcast video guy now. We batch record everything. I have a personal assistant now. Like my stuff has scaled to the point now where for me to really be successful at work, I have to allocate help. So I have really supportive friends and family that's also helped me tremendously. They have packed orders with me. Yeah, they was grinding with me. But yeah, I would say in the past year, I've definitely had to allocate resources to really keep afloat. So yeah, that's the stuff that I keep as the CEO side.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Kayla and Diana. Thank you for asking such good questions. And I think we're transitioning into the next session. So.